Alright, what's going on, everybody? It's your girl, a holy hustler, back at it again with another video. And this video, man, I'm gonna just really be giving my testimony, telling y'all like how I came back to Christ, right? And when I say I came back to Christ, how I just like started back praying more, reading my Bible, spending time with God, to where I'm at the point where I'm at now, just on a mental level, like mentally, like I'm just dedicated and committed to like really seeing it through. You know what I'm saying? Really running my race and finishing it, really working towards seeing his glory manifest in my life. So alright, so I'm gonna jump right into it, right? Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your girl, a holy hustler, you feel me? And I just want to let y'all in on something. I am a life coach. I do have my own online store. You can click the link in my bio. Make sure you click on the My Shop, the Heart of a Hustler tab. It will lead you directly to my goal setting coaching sessions, where I teach people how to set goals as well as create a plan of action. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Okay, I also do customized times. So if you may want to book a time at 2 a.m. in the morning or 3 a.m. in the morning, just make sure you click on that chat with us box in my store. Let me know that that's something that you're interested in, and I can make that available for you. Another thing, I also have a book that is coming out really soon. It is called Hustle Economics. You can pre-order it and make sure that you are one of the first ones to get it once it drops and releases. This book will teach you how to build your own online store from start to finish, so that you can free yourself from your 9 to 5. Without further ado, let's get into this video. Hustle. So, I want to say, back in 2021, right, I was rocking with God, like, real heavy. I'm talking about, like, praying, reading my Bible, studying the Word of God, really trying to apply it to my everyday life. I was fasting, but I wasn't fasting heavy, but I was fasting, like, a little bit, right? And then, I was going to church a lot. Like, every Sunday I was going to church. And every Sunday I did not want to go to church, but because God was telling me, go to church, I was going. So I was like real dedicated and committed, posting videos about God, telling people about God, teaching people about God, all type of stuff. Like, I was just in it. Like, that was my life. Anything that contradict my walk with Christ, I got rid of it. I had stopped doing things that God didn't approve of. If I didn't know I was doing something that he didn't approve of, but when he brought it to my attention, I would stop doing it immediately. I was really focused on my relationship with him. I wasn't even in no other relationships, you know what I'm saying? I was single as a Pringle, like I'm supposed to be, you know what I'm saying? And I was just rocking with it, and God was... The reason why I had walked away is because, for me, I was being disobedient to God. Like, God would tell me, like, do certain things, basically so that I could grow and advance in his kingdom and in life. Like you gotta understand, Jeremiah 29:11, God tell you, like, for I know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you. So God main agenda was to unfold his plan in my life, but in order for him to do that, I had to be in agreement with it, meaning I had to walk in obedience, so that everything that he got planned for me, I could receive it, and I could really live the life that he called for me to live and grow into the person that he called me to grow into. But I was just scared, because the visions that God was giving me and the dreams that he was giving me, I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like I wasn't worthy. I felt like I just really couldn't be all that God called me to be. Like, I feel like he called the wrong person. I'm like, God, I understand you've been placing these dreams and these visions in my heart ever since I was a kid, and now I'm at the point where it could really come to pass, and I was just engulfed with fear. And by me being engulfed with fear, I was being disobedient. And eventually my disobedience led to me walking away from God, because now I'm frustrated and I'm angry because I'm not seeing the promises and I'm not everything that he promised me. I'm not seeing it unfold in my life, but at the same time, I wasn't doing what he was telling me to do in order for me to receive his promises, right? So I had slowly stopped reading the Bible, slowly stopped praying. I think around that time, I also had found out that a preacher I was listening to was a false prophet. Like, he was like just falsely prophesying. You know how people really don't love God, don't have no intentions of serving God. I understand we all mess up and make mistakes, but when it comes to like a false prophet, a person is just making up stuff, saying, oh, God said this, God said that, like, that's a different, that ain't no mistake, that's a choice, you know what I'm saying? So I had found out that a preacher that I was listening to was a false prophet. And prior to me even finding out that it was him, God kept telling me, like, don't listen to false prophets. Don't listen to false prophets. False prophets are among you. False prophets will rise in the end days. So God kept trying to tell me it was a false prophet I was listening to, but I didn't know who it was. So I had cut out people. I had stopped listening to people, but the people I stopped listening to was the wrong people. You know what I'm saying? Like, the people I stopped listening to was actually really talking about God, really living their life, really walking their walk. So I believe, but God ended up revealing to me who the false prophet was that he showed me. And that kind of like discouraged me a little bit. That hurt my feelings because I'm like, dang, bro, like, how could you betray us like that? You know what I'm saying? Like, we really are sheep just trying to get to know God for ourselves. And then here you come falsely prophesying. But they kind of discouraged me a little bit. But that really wasn't the reason why I walked away from the faith. I walked away from the faith because I was being disobedient and I wasn't doing what God was calling me to do. And it frustrated me because I wasn't seeing the promises that he said he had for me. That's why I walked away, right? So, also, me stop praying. When I had stopped praying and stopped reading my Bible, that just took the icing off the cake because now that opened me up for the attacks of the enemy. Because now the enemy feel like, oh yeah, I finally got her back. You know what I'm saying? You got to understand, I had stopped smoking. I wasn't fornicating. I wasn't even talking to nobody. I wasn't even messing around with nobody on that type of level. And any temptation that would come around me, like if I met somebody at church or anything, and I felt in my spirit that this person wasn't right or this was a demon, you know what I'm saying, disguised as an angel, I cut them off completely. I didn't care about us going to church, none of that. I just cut them off because I was really dedicated to Christ at that time. So then, like I said, I stopped praying, started reading my Bible and everything, and I just slowly just started getting back into the world. I had made money my number one priority. I'm like, man, I need to run up a bag. But mind you, my soul was really tired because the way I went about running up a bag in the corporate world was about working a whole bunch of hours. And if you a workaholic, man, you understand that it's only so many hours you could work in a day, and profit really is better than wages because wages, you got a cap on the wealth you could build, the money you can make, and it's hard because you always got somebody standing over you, breathing down your neck, telling you what you can and can't do. Then when you do start making a lot of money, you got people hating on you, trying to stop you from making all this money. And then it's like you just selling your life. You really selling your hours for this little bit of paper that they giving you. You're not really prospering or going forward because you basically committed your life to this job that don't care nothing about you. They're just gonna fire you and kick you to the curb when they find somebody else. So, man, I was doing that for a little while, but that just got real tiring, real tiring. My soul was tired. I was aggravated, frustrated, irritated. But mind you, I still wasn't praying. I really wasn't rocking with God for real. But God kept calling me. God kept calling me back to the faith, kept encouraging me to come back to him, live for him. He kept reminding me of the promises that he had for me. Even in my sin, I'd be like, man, God, I'm tired of working all these hours. I'm tired of working at these jobs that don't respect me, that they don't respect my time. I do all this work for them, and then my supervisor's still threatening to fire me. I'm tired of living with this type of pressure, knowing that at any moment, my livelihood can be snatched away from me. And God would tell me, write the vision and make it plain. Stuff that he was telling me when I was rocking out with him, but I wasn't doing it. Or he would encourage me to dream and come back to him and live for him and remind me that he got a plan for my life. It's certain things that he want me to do for him, right? So I'm like, man, all right, cool. But I be procrastinating and I just eventually never do it, still being disobedient to the commands of God. So I think what took the icing off the cake is I had met this female during this time. This was last year, 2022. I had met this female during this time, and that was a complete waste of time, for real. That was honestly just a waste of time. I was literally just wasting time because every day I was with her, I was still thinking about God. It's like God really is married to the backslider because God stayed on my mind. The promises of God stayed on my mind. The life he had for me. It's like I really couldn't, even though I was in my sin, I really couldn't settle into being in sin. Or I really had no peace living in sin. I had no joy living in sin. I wasn't happy. I was always angry and frustrated because all I could think about is what God showed me. All I really desired was Christ and to really live for him and dedicate for him. So I would find myself daydreaming and just thinking about that or imagining that. And then I would be around her, but I would be talking about God so much to her. Like, I would be talking about God so much to her, to the point where one day I remember I had told her, I was like, yeah, I could never really commit my life to you because I'm in love with somebody else. And she was like, who you in love with? God? Like, she just already knew it. She already knew, like, I was rocking with, I was rocking with him heavy, but my actions wasn't showing it. I was rocking with him, like, I just remember what he did for me. I remember how far he brought me, and it's like I just really couldn't settle in. I couldn't settle with the fact of not being all that he called me to be. And then at this time, the devil was tormenting me, constantly giving me nightmares about how my life gonna be if I don't live for God. So God warning me and showing me how my life gonna be if I don't come back to him, if I don't live for him. You know what I'm saying? But then he also showing me what my life gonna be like with him and if I do commit to him. So throughout this point, God still calling me back, and then I think eventually I had started back smoking. If you watch my testimony where it say God delivered me from addiction, that's the addiction he delivered me from. He delivered me from smoking. So I had started back smoking. Mind you, I'm hanging out with this female every day. When God was God been telling me not to hang out with her. Like, almost every night I had a dream, and in the dream God was telling me, cut that off, let her go. You know what I'm saying? Like, let her go. I got a plan for you. I need for you to do this, that, and the third. That's a waste of time. You know what I'm saying? So, man, I had eventually started back smoking. But even when I smoked, I didn't get no peace, no satisfaction. Just nothing could calm my spirit. Nothing could calm my soul, because all I could think about was God. All I could fantasize about was Christ and what it would really be like if I really buckled down and committed and dedicated my life to him and really put the work in and the grind in to get to the place where he wanted me to be. So, mind you, I'm like, man, I really just didn't have peace living in sin. I didn't have peace for real, because I'm a hustler. I can get up and make money, but I didn't want to make money any kind of way. I didn't want to make money outside of the will of God, because I know what that come with. I understand the consequences. I understand that the devil got people out here selling their soul. And I'm like, bro, I'm not finna sell my soul for some God to give to me. You know what I'm saying? Then you got to worship the devil, and the devil going to do you dirty. God is a good God. He going to show you love and mercy, but the devil, he going to do you dirty, right? So I'm like, all right, man, like, I just kept working that job, and then eventually I ended up getting fired from this job I was working at. They fired me. If you watch my video, the testimony where I tell you I asked God for a job and he gave me the job I asked for, I ended up getting fired from that job that he blessed me with. You know what I'm saying? I was always coming in late, not showing up for real, calling off. That's a whole nother story, but yeah, I ended up getting fired. And I wasn't even mad I got fired. I actually felt like I had a certain level of peace. I'm like, dang, I kind of feel good that I don't work there no more, because once again, I felt like it was a limit on how much money I make. I felt like it was a limit on my potential. And then just deep down inside in my heart, I came to the realization that what I really, really want isn't to make a whole bunch of money, but what I really, really want is to live for God and have fulfillment within my soul. You know what I'm saying? Of course, I desire to be wealthy, and I'm going to grind and work to be wealthy, because that's one of the promises that God has for me. That's something that God has for me and his plans for my life. But what I really desire was to know Christ for myself and to be a friend to God and for God to be a friend to me. So I ended up getting fired from that job, and then I ended up, around that time I had got fired from that job, I had already had a second job. I was working at the gas station that I hated. I ended up going back there. Hated it when I was working up in there. But once again, I'm working all these hours. But as I'm working all these hours at the gas station, when I would come home, I would begin to fantasize about the life that God had for me. And I would think about it so much. I would visualize it so much to the point where I would make up in my mind, forget it, I'm finna go for it, right? So while I was working my job, I would come home and I would build my business. I was so tired because I was working 16-hour shifts back to back at this job at the gas station just so I could run up a bag so my check could be over $1,000. I'm working crazy hours just basically for $1,000. You know what I'm saying? And I would come home and I would still work on my business. So at that point, I was building my website, and I remember God speaking to me. I would visualize how I want my website to look, and I'd be like, man, I really should go for that. And God would tell me, like, God would say stuff to me like, you can't get what you don't go for it. So if you want it, you go for it. So I would begin to be on the computer like for hours, just working, building my website. I would fall asleep, wake up, and finish back working on my website, like designing my website. And I would pray and ask God, like, to help me, God, guide and lead me to the video that's going to help me and teach me how to do this or do that. And I would really just express my creativity. And as I was expressing my creativity, I would have a sense of peace in my mind. I would have a sense of joy in my spirit. Like, I would be happy because for the first time in a long time, I was actually doing something I enjoy. I was able to express my creativity and express a little bit about who I am as a person, what I stand for, and what I believe through web design and through designing my website. And that's one of the ways God kind of got me hooked back into coming in, because now I'm working, but I'm putting forth my works. I'm putting my hands to work on what he called me to work on in the first place. Around this time, I was still going to work, and I would try to do both. So I would take my laptop with me to work, and I would try to work on my business while I was at work, but that never worked out because I was just around too many distractions. I worked in a gas station. It seemed like the more I try to work on my business, the more customers were coming in, so I'm constantly stopping. Then I got my coworkers looking at my website, asking me like, hey, what you doing? Hey, that's hard. I rock with your website. Like, what's going on? What you doing? And at the time, I really didn't want to tell them what I was working on, because I'm the type of person where I believe in grinding in silence. Like, a lot of my greatest results came from me just working, not announcing what I'm doing, but just working on it, right? So eventually I had stopped working on my website and I put it to the side. But around the time I had stopped working on it and put it to the side, I was already completely done with it. So I had did all the legal work and everything. I was completely done with it. I just stopped and put it to the side. And then I had started thinking about, I had a choice. I was like, I could really dedicate my time and my attention to my website and then just work regular 40-hour shifts a week at my job, or I can, or I can just go all in on my or I can just go all in on my job and just try to run up a bigger check by working more hours, right? So then I had decided, like, man, I'm finna work all these hours at this job, and God saw that. Like, that's why I thank God for stopping me from making the biggest mistake in my life, because he saw me calculating how much money I could make at the job. Even though I was calculating I could make more money in my business, I would have more peace in my mind, in my body, in my soul. I would actually be joyful and happy because I'm doing something that I love. On top of that, my relationship with God would grow because my business is based off of him. You know what I'm saying? One thing, just in case you don't know, I teach people how to develop themselves according to the word of God, because I believe that the word of God is God, because it tells us that in John chapter 1 verse 1. The word of God is God, and I honestly believe that if you apply those scriptures and those principles to your life, it'll change your life, because I've done it in my life and I've seen the change. But at the time, to me personally, working on my business was a risk that I wasn't willing to take. So I said, I'm finna go hard in my job. Now let me show you how God disrupted everything at the job. So mind you, I just got fired from one job. Prior to me getting fired, after I got fired, I was still working at the gas station. One thing that changed is, even though I was living deep in my sin, I was still, and I wasn't really praying and reading my Bible. When I did pray to God, I would pray and ask God, Lord, don't let me miss out on what you got for me. I pray and I ask, Lord, that I grow and I become and I develop into who you have designed me to be. I pray and I ask, Lord, that I receive each and every last promise that you have for me. So even though I was living in my sin, I would still pray. I wasn't praying heavy, but I would still pray that I make it to the finish line, that I make it to the promises, that I live to see all that he has for me. You know what I'm saying? I will also pray that I make it to heaven and that I grow and develop into who he has called and designed me to be. Now, I'm praying, but I didn't have eyes to see how he was answering my prayers by disrupting my life. So I'm praying to God. Around this time, chaos had started happening in my life as well as my mother and my brother's life. So me and my mother came together and we started praying. And one of the principles in the Bible is, if 2 or 3 come together and gather in my name, I will stand in the midst of them. I found that to be true at a very young age. But even now, when me and my mother came together and we prayed and we fought against the enemy, God would show up and show out in our lives. And my mother would constantly pray for me of course, her daughter and her son. She would pray for our souls and pray that we live for him and pray that we grow and develop into who he called us to be. So now it's two people praying for me and then my mom. And then it would be times where I would just start speaking in tongues out of nowhere. So there was God praying through me on my behalf. So there's three people praying for me, right? So even though I was in my sin, I still would pray for my soul. I still would pray that I grow and become who God designed me to be. Even though I didn't believe in what I was praying, I couldn't see how God was going to do it, I still prayed it, right? So around this time, like I said earlier, I had decided, okay, I'm finna go hard at the job. I'm finna run up all these hours. I'm finna do this, that, and that with this bag, everything. But deep down in my soul, I was tired of working all them hours. I was just drained and I was tired, and I knew that I really couldn't accomplish the goals that I had or that God had for me with me working at this job. And then one day, I had worked 77 hours in a week. I went to work and I looked on the time clock and it said I only worked 64 hours. So I'm like, what? I know I worked 77 hours because I got the proof when I sent it to myself. So I went to my supervisor and I was talking to her, and she basically was telling me, you work too many hours, we don't want to pay you. The big bosses don't want to pay you because you work too many hours. So me and her ended up getting into it. Like, I ended up snapping out on her real bad. Like, I'm talking about like straight snap, because it's like, how is you gonna tell me that you're not finna pay me for what I work for? Because y'all, okay, I worked 77 hours in a week, but I done made y'all over $77,000 since I've been here. If we being real, and then on top of that, if that's the case, everybody that bought stuff between that time, between all them times, them hours I was working, the hours that you don't want to pay me for, refund everybody their money back when they came in during that time to buy things when I was working, refund them their money back, because we both know that if I wasn't working during that time, you guys wouldn't have made no money, because people constantly calling off, the store wouldn't be closed. Like, you had no reliable workers. I was and still is their most reliable worker, but I'm not there anymore, of course. So I spazzed out. Like, I'm talking about, like, I'm mad at this time. I ain't living for God. So at this point, I'm mad. I'm ready to fight. It is what it is. You're not finna play with me about my paper, about my bread, right? So eventually, God ended up fixing it for me, because my mother had prayed on my behalf prior to, me being ready to beat up my supervisor, basically. My mama had prayed for me and prayed on my behalf and prayed for my victory in that situation. So God came through. He came through for me. I was mad. Like, Youngin really was mad that day. And that day I just quit because I felt disrespected. I felt unappreciated. I felt underpaid and undervalued. Like, they were just trying to use me and then toss me to the side. And then on top of that, I had found out it was just a lot of fraudulent activity going on, because it was just crazy. I ain't even finna get into it. It was just a whole bunch of crazy fraudulent activity going on. Like I told you, I was making a lot of money, so some people was jealous and envious of me, and they would go behind my back to my supervisor, basically trying to get me fired, So I quit, man, and my mama was telling me, just put your trust in God, just dedicate, just focus on Him, live for Him, build your relationship with God. Just focus on building your relationship with God. You know what I'm saying? Just trust God. So I'm like, all right, cool. So at the time, I still had this little shorty I was messing around with, man. And it was just real hard for me to just let her go. Of course, I let her go now. I just made up in my mind that I just want to live for God. I'm dedicated and committed. I ain't had no business messing around with that girl anyway, And I'm not prospering and growing with her, and she ain't prospering and growing with me. So we really are better off apart. We wasn't supposed to be together in the first place. So I was messing around with her, but I was still getting up praying, reading my Bible. And as I'm praying and reading my Bible, I just came to a point in life where I just made up my mind and decided, like, I just made a real decision. I'm like, man, if I really want what God got for me, if I really want that relationship, if I really want to grow and be all that He called me to be, I got to really buckle down and sacrifice and grind and dedicate and commit to building that relationship with Him. So I'm like, okay, cool. That's what I want. That's what I'm going to do. I want Christ in my life. I want to live for Him. I want to be holy. So I just started back praying. I started back reading my Bible with the intentions of getting to know God. And then ever since then, shoot, That's just all I've been doing. I've been praying, reading my Bible, and most importantly, grinding, working towards the promises of God, and just really working on being obedient. It just, for me, it was just really hard trying to be obedient because I was so used to doing things on my own, so used to coming up with my own plans and my own way of doing things. But now I got somebody in my life telling me that they got a better way. And I know they got a better way because I've seen their way and I've experienced how much better it is. So, man, I was just like, okay, cool. I just laid my will down, and it's like, not my will, but the will of God, and just dedicate, commit, put Him first, grind, hustle, you know what I'm saying? Run up this bag for God the right way, for God, with God the right way, so I could receive everything that He has for me, as well as that relationship that I want. Because one thing I noticed, what I really want is a real, true, growing relationship with God, because all I ever really wanted was a real friend. And I never really had any friends, because anybody that I would come in contact with, they would be jealous of me, envious of me, or I would be too ambitious for them, or it was just like we was just on two different paths. Even though I was deep in my sin, I was deep in my sin, but I didn't want to be in my sin. I was trying to get out of my sin, but I was hanging around people who were living in sin, and they were okay with it, and they didn't see anything wrong with it. So me being around them type of people with that type of mindset, I just really just became like the people I was hanging around. But God would reveal to me that they were snakes and fake and wasn't loyal and wasn't, committed to me or dedicated to building a friendship with me. They just wanted to use me or lie to me or manipulate me, or some of them even sought out to do harm to me because just envy and jealousy in their hearts. You know what I'm saying? So my main focus when it came to God was I just wanted to know Him for myself. I wanted to build a relationship with Him for myself, because I experienced His greatness, I experienced His glory, I experienced His power in my own life, how He delivered me just out of nowhere. He just delivered me from a lot of things I was fighting. So when I made up in my mind that, for God I live, for God I die type, you know what I'm saying? Like, just really grinding and working towards developing that mindset, and really praying that God take the mind that's in Him and place it in me, so that I could really live for Him and be holy like He called me to be. And that's kind of how I came back to Christ. I came back to Christ through prayer. I came back to Christ through chaos happening in my life. God really disrupted my life. Him disrupting my life brought me back to Him. Him reminding me of the promises, and just deep down inside my soul being tired, and just me wanting real, true companionship with God. So now I'm back. It ain't easy. It's hard getting back into the habit of praying. It's hard getting back into the habit of studying my Bible. It's hard, but I'm doing it. It's hard, but I'm doing it. So that's how I came back, man. I came back to Christ with Him just disrupting my life. So He disrupted my life, basically like took me out of one situation and dropped me in a completely different situation, just so I could focus on Him and dedicate to Him. Like, He basically like isolated me from all of my distractions. Like, I couldn't grow in my job because I'm smoking with my coworkers that I'm smoking with them every day. You know what I'm saying? Sinning, doing stuff I shouldn't be doing. You know what I'm saying? Talking to females and all type of stuff, man. So God removed me out of that environment and placed me in a completely different environment where I could just really dedicate and focus my mind on Him. So that's how I came back. God disrupted my life, brought me back to Him. So that's all. That's my testimony for how I came back to the faith. When I did come back, though, it was new, because He just gave me new understanding about what I'm supposed to do, my mission, and who I am and who He is. He gave me new knowledge. He allowed for me to see my situation from a completely different perspective. I came back with a little bit of experience with walking with God, so I know what I should and should not do, but I'm still learning. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, it's new. It's the same thing with a new approach to it, and He helped me. He really did a new thing, really showed me things from a new perspective, and He really is helping me every day. Every day He with me, every day He walking with me and helping me. So I'm back. I thank God I'm back, and He helped me back. So that's my testimony, how I came back to Christ. I say for anybody out there that did backslide and you want to get your life back with God, one thing I would strongly encourage you to do is pray. Like I said, prayer is what helped me get here. prayer is what helped me get with God in the first place. I was constantly praying for it. So prayer, and just opening up that Bible and reading His Word, getting His Word inside of you really does help push everything outside of you, because now you see life from a higher perspective. You see life from His perspective, and it will encourage you and motivate you to want to just try it. At least try His Word and try to apply His Word to your life. And when you see it working, you're going to be like, oh yeah, He really is a man in His Word. He really do stand on what He talk about. You know what I'm saying? He really is about what He talk about. So I would strongly encourage any backslider out there to pray, rededicate their life to Christ through prayer. Take it one day at a time. Study the Bible, apply it to your life, read the Word of God, and be obedient unto God, because you being obedient unto God, man, that's what's going to blow your mind. That's when the blessings going to start coming. That's when your life going to start changing. That's when you going to start changing into who God designed you to be, because you're being obedient unto Him. So, yeah, that's what I would say. But like the words say, like God say, man, a righteous man falls 7 times but get back up. We all fall. Some people fall a little harder than others. Some people stay down longer than others. Like I said, that was 2021. This 2023. That was 2 years of my life I could never get back, that I wasted in sin. You see what I'm saying? So most definitely, I say stay the course no matter how hard it get. Keep praying, keep repenting, keep studying your word. Don't give up on God, because He won't give up on you. And that's all, man. That's how I did it.